Joe, the Oregon Ducks went on their spring game this weekend, and I got to admit, good for Bo Nix. Sean Payton's going to Sean Payton from a guy who is a massive Saints fan. Sean Payton's going to Sean Payton. Regardless, I saw that you tweeted earlier today in reference to their spring game about how much you love their physicality. What did you think of the Oregon Ducks spring game?
So a couple of things that really popped for me. First of all, we've watched enough of these spring games where I've got a sense of like
teams tackling.
Right. I like that Oregon was. Oregon was one of the few teams.
No, they played two-hand touch, Big Daddy.
No, they didn't.
Pretty sure.
Am I tripping?
Yeah, you tripped.
No.
No, that was Colorado. My bad.
There was one play. Okay, so this leads into my point. The first thing that stood out was the physicality. The offensive and defensive line were going to war. That defensive line looks deep. It looks physical. It looks aggressive. There was one play that I remember where I think it was a running back was, caught a pass or something like that. Got hit so hard by one of the defenders that his
that's right.
beanie cap came flying off. That was why I immediately tweeted that out. I literally out loud said, "God damn, that was a good hit." But I thought that we're starting to see with Oregon that they, first of all, perfect identity fit for them to go to the Big Ten because they're not afraid to be physical. They're not afraid to be aggressive. They have the tone, the mentality of Georgia, like we've talked about, that they're Georgia West. The other things that stood out to me too, I think they're very deep at quarterback, which is an obvious take to have. Dillon Gabriel looked really steady. Dante Moore looked aggressive and had some really nice tight windows that he was able to fit the ball into, some really, really nice throws. And then Austin Novosad too. It's crazy to think that they're three deep at quarterback if things go horribly wrong. The last thing, watch out for the receiver room because I still stand by Tez Johnson looked really freaking good. And I think that Evan Stewart is going to benefit from being in a situation like this in an offense that allows their receivers to make plays after the catch.
You know what's really interesting? We did our top 5 wide receivers, and we didn't even mention Evan Stewart.
I wish I did. I feel dumb not doing it.
People forget about him, and I be real with you, and this is unfortunate. Joe, I'm watching this game. I'm like, damn it, I forgot Evan Stewart went there. Yeah. Because he was looking at so many different places, and so many different teams had bad medicals on him. But he's there. So here's what I'll say. I agree with you on the physicality defensively. I think that they are building something really special defensively at Oregon. I don't know how I like that O-line. I really don't. You talked about the physicality. I don't know if I saw the physicality up front of that O-line. So they couldn't run. I mean, they had some bust out runs, but they just didn't look good on the O-line. They looked clunky. I don't really know how to explain it because, they were getting after it. I don't know if that D-line is just that good or if their O-line is just average, And so I think that Dillon Gabriel, look, Joe, what was it, 3 sacks in the opening drive? Only 2 of them were stopped. There are a couple of things here that if you're going in the Big Ten now, when you play Ohio State, if you got to play at Michigan, it's not going to bode well for you. You're going to have to get in some really physical wars here. I agree with you on one thing. I don't know if Dillon Gabriel's had the weapons that he's had with this. And you know what? Dante Moore, him throwing reminds me so much of Bryce Young. Just
like
the way that
he's got a bigger arm than him too, which is kind of crazy to.
But they still have that slingshot rotation. Boop, 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 and he's out. And I agree. Joe, they're a top 5, top 6 team. All around. And you got to be nitpicky with a team like that. They got weapons. I think their D-line and their front 7 is really good. I liked how fast their secondary was. I didn't realize their secondary would be that fast. Got some dudes that can really run in that secondary. I think if there's just a chink in the armor that I'm looking at the Oregon Ducks, it's got to be that O-line and that O-line play. But again, how much is that defensive line just being that good? How do you judge that? They did not look great to me. It's all I'm saying.
That's where I stand. Jordan Burch had himself a really nice day. I think that the defensive line shined more to me that they're taking a step forward. They lost Brandon Dorless, but for the most part, most of that defensive line is sticking together. Most of that linebacker core is sticking together. I just think that unit is so fast and so dominant that it made what is a pretty good offensive line look pedestrian. Now they're replacing multiple interior offensive linemen, which is going to be tough. Their tackles is where it's going to need to be the anchor points. They need to help the guys next to them mesh better and play better. Connerly and a Johnny Cornelius at left and right tackle could be the best tackle pairing in the country, but they got to play up to that expectation. And more importantly, they got to help elevate the guys around them. But
the problem with that, though, Joe, if you were saying that they're replacing guards and a center, I would feel a little bit better than replacing the tackles. Can I tell you why? Because I think that they're fine pass pro wise in the interior, and I think Oregon's going to be fine in the pass pro at tackles. Mm-hmm. Okay. The problem with me, though, is when you're going into the Big Ten, if you can't run north-south, you got a problem. You can run east-west and use speed and get on the outside in the Pac-12. You're not doing that shit in the Big Ten. I promise you, because those teams are just as fast as you. So if you can't get pushed in that interior, you're in trouble. You know, as my grandmammy once said, you're one hair plucked from a horse's ass from you going and getting the switch and getting your ass beat. Okay, if you don't get north and south in this running game, they were really lateral. I don't like teams.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't like teams that are so lateral. Okay, when you're going to a conference defensively, Joe, they can't do that shit against Michigan. Blake, Michigan, look at all this stuff they're losing. I don't get to Rudy Poos. They are good enough defensively that if you don't get north-south on them, they will beat you. Or they will be in a situation where they can beat you. Okay?
That's if Orgy can hit the broadside of a barn.
Well, everyone loves orgies. Okay. Ohio, you know what? Even if it's not Michigan, you can't. Here's the team that you ultimately can't do it to, and the team that we're really and ultimately comparing you to, Ohio State. I promise you won't be able to do that against that defense. So again, I preface to all Oregon fans that will be in here, when Joe and I talk about the top 5 teams in college football, I wish I had a comb right here. We go through it with a fine-tooth comb because those are the teams that we're comparing you to. If you're Kansas State, okay, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But you have to look at them so much at a different lens, Joe, mainly because of just who they are, at least in my opinion.
I think I'm just a little bit more bullish than you. I think that they're a top 3 team. I was blown away. They're one of like a couple of teams that I've watched that I've just been blown away. And maybe it stems from the quarterback position because I watched 2 quarterbacks play at a ridiculously high level. Meanwhile, we're watching all these other teams and I'm watching, a bunch of slappies throw the ball around and they can't figure out who the starting quarterback is on some of these teams that we've talked about and watched. But I think that there's value.
What we're trying to compare here. I agree with you on quarterback, but Joe, if they can't run the ball, if they can't line up and run the ball for a yard, the Washington games will happen. It's exactly what happened to you.
But I think that they feel tangibly better than last year.
I can't go there.
We see 2 different things.
Oh man, you're replacing Bo Nix, man, a top 12 pick. What are you talking?
Oregon is my Washington this year, which makes no sense if you look at those words on paper. Look, this is my early billing.
No, wait. You're Washington because Washington came out of nowhere.
They didn't come out of nowhere for me because I knew early on that they were going to be good, Blake.
You came out of nowhere. The problem I have with you saying that is because I like Dan Lanning.
Didn't come out of nowhere. Washington was a top 10 team early on.
They were number 13.
Regardless, though, the teams that I'm about to be all in on that's going to piss everyone off is Miami, it's Oregon, it's Texas, and it's Georgia. Those are the 4 teams that I'm going to ride until the end of the season. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.